In the warm glow of Christmas Eve, I held the plate of homemade sugar cookies I'd baked with my own hands. My knuckles were almost turning white from gripping it so tightly. I'm Edith Carter, a 34-year-old bank clerk, and the scene unfolding before me was the final straw that broke the camel's back after years of silently enduring it all. Last week, Dad had actually patted his chest and declared, "This year, let's skip the gift-giving and just spend some quality time together." I believed him. I spent 3 late nights baking cookies, hoping for just a fleeting moment of warmth and connection. Yet here Daisy was, looking like a decorated princess, smiling as she tore open one glittering box after another. A brand new iPhone, a designer handbag worth $5,000, and diamond jewelry, all appearing one after another. The applause from Mom and Dad kept coming, and Mom even wiped away a tear from the corner of her eye, saying, "My Daisy really has made something of herself." Not a single person noticed the cookies in my hands, and no one seemed to remember that it was actually my salary that had paid for their Spotify memberships, their Hulu subscriptions, even Daisy's camera lens, and my brother-in-law Corey's leather jacket. The artificial snowflakes still drifted gently through the room, and the twinkling lights of the Christmas tree made my eyes feel gritty. I stood in the corner by the snack table. The edges of that plate of cookies were uneven, a testament to all-night baking sessions. The flour stains on my apron hadn't even been washed off yet somehow, this simple, unassuming moment felt like the most superfluous thing in the entire room. Daisy held up her brand new phone, adjusting the angle with a voice brimming with pride. "This one's definitely going viral." Her gesture of shaking her handbag was almost as if she were brandishing a trophy. Mom leaned in to help her arrange her jewelry, her voice radiating an unhidden delight. Only our Daisy could pull off something like this. Dad sipped his coffee quietly, nodding frequently. "She's got real drive. Nothing beats that." My chest felt as though it were weighed down by a massive boulder. The smile I managed to force onto my face froze in place, and I wished so badly someone would just ask, "Did you bake these cookies?" But their gazes remained fixed on Daisy from start to finish. "Sponsorship is just so awesome," Daisy said proudly as she filmed a short video. Her mom chuckled along, completely oblivious to the cookies I'd left cooling on the corner of the table. I slammed my plate down and felt my hands trembling uncontrollably. For 3 years now, I've been faithfully paying $15.99 every month for our family's Spotify subscription because Daisy insisted that high-quality audio was essential for creating workout playlists. I signed up my parents for Hulu subscriptions to keep them entertained, only to find that it had become nothing more than a tool for Daisy to study beauty tutorials. I gave them my credit card's supplementary card for emergencies, yet it ended up serving as a cash machine for Corey to splurge on luxury goods and for Daisy to buy new filming equipment. Thousands upon thousands of dollars have gone out the window, and I never once expected anything in return, just that my family should support each other. But instead of even a simple "you've worked hard," they're stingy with words of appreciation. On the contrary, they seem to think that my salary as a bank clerk is simply meant to fund their lavish spending. I'm not jealous of Daisy's gifts. I hate the way her neglect feels so utterly taken for granted. Every single bill I've paid, every late-night call for help I've answered, it all seems to them less valuable than a plate of homemade cookies. For years, I've been the family's self-proclaimed nice guy, the one who never says no. Mom always calls it my duty to help, but that duty has felt like an invisible chain, choking me until I can hardly breathe. Daisy relies on her influencer status to draw attention. Her Instagram page is dazzling and glamorous, but few people know that the real sponsor behind the scenes has always been me. Last month, she used my credit card to buy an expensive camera lens, claiming it was essential for her career. Not only did my parents not object, they kept praising her for being ambitious. At the time, I chose to swallow my anger, telling myself that we shouldn't make a big deal out of it as a family. But tonight, watching Daisy flaunt the spoils she's amassed with my money, well, something inside me just snapped. I'm not her financial sponsor. I'm not my parents' financial manager, and certainly not some expendable backdrop in this family. I glanced at the plate of cookies, now cold and ignored. Mom leaned in toward Leah and whispered something quietly, sending both of them into laughter. Dad raised his glass and toasted Leah's success. My throat felt hot, not from tears, but from a stark realization. I'd been acting as their bank, their safety net, for far too long. I remembered spending hours balancing their accounts while they were busy admiring Leah's posts. I remembered sacrificing my own plans just to cover their emergency expenses. Enough is enough. I grabbed my wallet, and their indifference weighed heavily on my shoulders. Leah's voice followed me, still chattering away about her fans. Mom called out, "Dana, where are you going?" But her tone was more one of annoyance than concern. Even Dad didn't look up. I didn't say a word. My boots clicked softly against the hardwood floor as I made my way toward the door. The cold air outside felt like a wake-up call, a sharp, relentless jolt that hit me full in the face. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their gratitude. I'd had enough of playing their games, of paying the price for their comfort while they cheered for Leah. The car keys in my hand jingled faintly as I stepped out into the night. Betrayal burned inside me, yet it also gave me strength. I wasn't just leaving this party, I was leaving behind their expectations altogether. This wasn't about cookies or gifts, it was about finally choosing myself. On the drive home from the Christmas party, all those overlooked efforts and ignored grievances surged into my mind like a tidal wave. I paid for Spotify Premium for them for a full 3 years. Daisy kept switching one playlist after another, yet she never once offered a chip in even a single penny. In our Hulu account, my parents' old TV shows made up only a small fraction. Most of the content was makeup and fashion videos cached by Daisy. She used this content to attract fans, and all the money she earned went straight into her own pocket, while I dutifully paid the monthly subscription fee of $12.99 on time. I've always been able to look myself in the mirror without guilt, even though I've been driving an old car that's been with me for a decade, even though Daisy borrowed the money I'd been saving for a laptop to fix her car, and even though Corey disguised pet grooming bills as emergency medical bills and asked me to reimburse them, I never once said a harsh word. Yet my kindness has become their excuse to keep pushing further and further. The credit card is what really broke my heart. A few years ago, I gave in and added them as authorized users, explicitly telling them it was only for emergencies. But then Corey used it to buy a $2,000 leather jacket, claiming he needed it to make a good impression at business meetings. Daisy spent $1,500 on a camera lens, claiming it determined the success or failure of her influencer career. Every time I see a spending reminder, my heart sinks. But no matter how much I question them, all I ever get in return is Mom's unshakable conviction. This is a family responsibility. You have a stable job, so what's wrong with helping out your family? And Dad chimed in, saying, Daisy's building her career. You should just be more understanding. In their eyes, family responsibility has always been solely my burden, and when they talk about helping each other, it's always me who's doing all the giving unilaterally. I've tried setting boundaries before. 2 summers ago, I suggested we split the Spotify bill. Leah just laughed it off, saying, You're the one who deals with numbers, Dana. Why don't you handle it? Mom backed her up, even accusing me of being selfish for even bringing it up. Family members should help each other out, she said, her tone leaving no room for doubt. I flinched, feeling guilty, as if asking for fairness were some kind of betrayal toward them. Another time, when I mentioned credit card expenses to my dad, he waved his hand and cut me off, saying, Leah's building her career. Your job is stable. It was as if my job didn't matter at all, as if my sacrifices were somehow just expected. I spent countless nights balancing their accounts, sacrificing my own plans just to cover their urgent needs. Like one night, Leah called me in the middle of the night, begging for $500 to fix her car so she could attend a photography event. I transferred the money to her, even though I'd been saving up to buy a new laptop. Or when Corey's dog ended up with an emergency vet bill that turned out to be a $700 grooming package, I paid it all. They thanked me with a quick text, and that was it. Nobody has ever asked me how I'm doing, and no one has ever offered to share the burden. My mom once told me, Dana, you're really good at managing money. This is your gift. But somehow, it feels like a curse. Leah's Instagram following keeps growing, and her videos have become polished thanks to equipment I've been funding. Corey struts around town wearing designer clothes, while I'm still driving a 10-year-old car. At every family gathering, my parents brag about Leah's success, but they never mention how much time I've spent keeping our household running. Last fall, I tried talking to them again, suggesting we cancel our shared credit card. Leah rolled her eyes and said, "Don't make such a big deal out of it." My mom got angry and accused me of distancing myself from the family. My dad just stared at his coffee, muttering, "Let's not fight." Once again, I gave in, and I hated myself for it. But that night, as I drove home, their voices echoed in my mind. Mom's family responsibilities, Dad's "we're all in this together," and Leah's casual laughter. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I wasn't just paying their bills. I was buying their approval, their attention with money, and yet I wasn't getting anything in return. Every single dollar I'd spent on them was a piece of myself I'd lost. I'd been their safety net for far too long, and they'd come to take it for granted. My phone lay quietly on the passenger seat, but I knew this wouldn't last much longer. They'd notice soon enough, and they wouldn't like it. But I was no longer the Dana who used to back down. Never again. At 10 p.m., while my phone still buzzed faintly from the lingering warmth of the party, I sat on the couch, opened my laptop, and tapped steadily on the keyboard with firm, determined fingers. First came Spotify. I changed the password, canceled the family plan, and completely removed Daisy's and my parents' accounts. Next was Hulu. After resetting the password, I deleted all their personal profiles, leaving behind only my own viewing history. Finally, there was the credit card. I called the bank directly, removed all authorized users, and had the card frozen. My hands were trembling slightly, but not out of fear. Rather, it was a sense of relief. This wasn't revenge. It was just the first step I took to reclaim control over my life. I've already given far too much. There's no need for me to keep draining myself for a bunch of people who don't know how to be grateful. No sooner had I finished my actions than Daisy's text messages started flooding in. "Are you crazy? What do you mean you kicked me off Spotify? All my playlists are gone. You've ruined my work. How am I supposed to edit videos without background music? You're embarrassing us. Fix this problem right now." Her words pierced me like a knife, but it wasn't anything new. Every time I tried to stand up for myself, I'd heard remarks just like these. Dad's message followed close behind, blunt and unyielding. "Get the account back online. We need them." I put down my phone, my heart racing. They weren't asking, they were commanding, as if I were their employee rather than their daughter. Then Corey called. I let it go to voicemail, but he left a message, his voice dripping with contempt. "How childish, Dana. Just cutting us off like this? Grow up already." I didn't call him back. His words echoed the same tone that Leah's, Mom's, and Dad's had, all of them blaming me for their troubles. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. For years, I'd been their safety net, their ATM, and they'd taken it for granted that I was always supposed to keep being that way. That would stop now. I opened my laptop again and checked every single account once more. Spotify now belonged only to me, just my playlists and my choices. "That's not how we raised you." I almost laughed. "Educate me?" They've been teaching me to say yes, to pay up, and to keep quiet. Dad made 2 phone calls and left voice messages. "Dana, we're family. Just restore the account." I deleted them without even finishing listening. Then Corey sent a text, just one line. "You'll regret this." I blocked his number. My inbox felt like a war zone. Leah's tirades, Mom's guilt-tripping onslaught, Dad's commands. But for the first time in years, I felt at peace. I wasn't arguing anymore, nor was I begging for their understanding. I'd had enough of having to explain myself. Every single account I closed was a wall I was building, a wall they couldn't cross. Let them scream, post, whatever they want, call me whatever they please. I'm no longer their bank, no longer their doormat. I turned off my phone, and silence felt like a relief. This is my bottom line. I'm not backing down. The next morning, the doorbell jolted me awake. I stumbled out of bed, my heart pounding, and opened the door to find my parents standing there, their faces flushed with anger. "You're so selfish, Dana," Mom snapped, her voice sharp enough to shatter glass. "Do you really think you can just cut us off like this?" Dad crossed his arms, glaring at me fiercely. "Get those accounts restored right now. We're a family, not business partners." I froze, my bare feet pressing against the cold floor. Their words hit me hard, but deep down, I wasn't surprised. They'd always expected me to fix their problems. Before I could even respond, a police car pulled up, its lights flashing. 2 officers stepped out, their badges gleaming under the light. "We received a call about a domestic dispute. I'm on my way." A few minutes later, she pulled up, her car screeching to a halt in the driveway. Without hesitation, Mandy stepped between me and my parents. "Dana can handle this," she said, her voice level and steady, giving me a gentle nod. She pulled me aside, her gaze soft yet serious. "I've been through this before," she whispered. "Last year, I cut off my family's access to my account. They called me all sorts of nasty things. But it'll get better. You're not alone." Her words were like a lifeline, pulling me back from the brink of doubt. I turned to the officer and said clearly, "These are my accounts, and I'm the one who paid for them. I set the boundaries, and they're unhappy about it." The tall officer nodded and began jotting down notes in his notebook. "Sounds like a civil matter," he said. "If the accounts are under your name, then it's your decision." Mom's face contorted, and her voice rose. "This is absurd. She's tearing our family apart." Dad chimed in coldly. "You're punishing us, Dana. Just put things back the way they were." I shook my head and stood up straighter. "I'm not punishing anyone. I'm protecting myself." The officers exchanged glances, then turned to Mom. "Ma'am," one of them said, "if the accounts belong to her, then there's no crime here." They tipped their hats and walked back to the police car, leaving Mom standing there, fuming with anger. Mandy gave my arm a gentle squeeze. Her presence brought me a sense of calm. "You did the right thing," she whispered softly. "They'll learn to live without you." Mom and Dad didn't budge. They remained on my porch, hurling accusations at me. "You've always been so hard to deal with," Mom said, her voice tinged with guilt. "We don't deserve this kind of treatment from you." Dad chimed in, "You're making a big mistake. We'll talk again when you're ready to see things more rationally." I didn't argue, didn't offer any explanations. I just stood there, letting their words bounce off me like water on a stone. Mandy leaned close to me. Her quiet strength reminded me that I wasn't alone. The police car drove away, its lights fading into the early morning darkness. Finally, Mom and Dad turned around and walked off, Mom muttering under her breath, "You'll understand how it feels someday." I closed the door. My heart was still racing, but my resolve had only grown stronger. I've been carrying their burdens for years, but this is it. Mandy and I sat on the sofa, neither rushing me nor saying a word, just sitting there with me. "When I cut ties with my family," she said, "they showed up at my workplace. But I held firm, and eventually they gave up. You're stronger than you realize." I nodded. Her words sank deep into my soul. This wasn't just about the accounts, it was about regaining control of my life. The voices of my mom and dad still echoed in my mind, but I wasn't going to back down. I'd already set my boundaries, and I'd stick to them. By noon, Daisy's situation had completely spiraled out of control. She posted an emotional breakdown video on Instagram, her eyes red-rimmed as she complained about equipment malfunctions and failed collaborations, yet she didn't mention a single word about losing financial support. I learned from a mutual friend that the big skincare brand she'd been bragging about for weeks, because she'd failed to deliver the polished video on time. No Spotify background music, no Hulu product research footage, simply terminated their collaboration and even demanded that she pay a portion of the breach fee. Daisy was borrowing money left and right to keep things afloat, but since all she ever did was show off, hardly anyone was willing to help her. She tried to reopen her streaming account, but couldn't even figure out the registration process, so she just sat there, fuming helplessly at her phone, even going so far as to secretly lash out at me on social media, calling me cold-blooded. I wasn't feeling smug at all. I just felt utterly sad. She'd leaned on me for far too long and had already lost the ability to fend for herself. And Mom and Dad's reaction was downright absurd. Mom sent dozens of texts starting with accusations like, "How can you be so selfish?" then moving on to playing the victim. Without Hulu, I can't even sleep at night, and finally resorting to moral blackmail. "You'll pay for this someday." She even went around complaining to relatives that I was ungrateful and had grown too independent to care about the family. Dad tried to sign up for a Hulu account himself, but frustrated by the confusing credit card information and verification process, he ended up smashing his phone in anger. He even made several phone calls, leaving voicemails, his tone shifting from stern to pleading. "Edith, I'm begging you, please just restore the account. We're getting old. We just can't keep up with all this stuff." They'd never once considered how, over the years, I'd been juggling a full-time job while handling all their financial matters and subscription services for them. What's more, they'd never realized that they'd actually been perfectly capable of managing these little tasks on their own, but my overbearing care had turned them into big babies. Corey wasn't having an easy time either. Without my credit card as his backing, he could no longer afford to splurge on luxury items at will and was forced to wear his old clothes whenever he went out. He started looking for work everywhere, but accustomed as he was to loafing around, he couldn't stand the hard work of retail, and he simply didn't meet the requirements for office jobs either, hitting dead ends again and again in his interviews. Once, he ran into me at the supermarket and immediately started accusing me of ruining his life, saying that if I hadn't cut off his financial support, he wouldn't have had to go through all this suffering. I just gave him a cold look and said, "The money I give you was never meant for you to squander." He was so furious he could hardly contain himself, yet deep down, he knew he was powerless against it. Watching their respective predicaments, I felt absolutely no pity, not because I'd caused their troubles, but because their own laziness and selfishness had brought them to this point. All I'd done was take back the protective umbrella that never should have been mine in the first place. I didn't dwell on their struggles. Instead, I reflected on what I'd learned. Self-respect means refusing to sacrifice my own happiness just to please a family that takes me for granted. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's a matter of survival. It protects my time, my money, and my sense of self. For years, I'd spent so much effort trying to please them, thinking that would make me a good daughter and a good sister. But their demands only kept growing, draining me until I had nothing left to give. Now I cherish my own worth and my own choices. I'm no longer responsible for their mistakes or their consequences. My life is shaped by me, and I've had enough of letting them control everything. That turmoil on Christmas Eve ultimately became a turning point in my life. I finally realized that true family love has never been about one-sided sacrifice and compromise, much less about one party taking the other for granted. Setting boundaries is never selfish. It's an affirmation of your self-worth and a safeguarding of healthy family relationships. I used to think that giving would earn me recognition, that enduring silently would keep our family harmonious. But reality proved otherwise. People who don't know how to cherish others will never be grateful for your concessions. Today, I'm no longer the Edith who bent over backward for her family. Instead, I've become an independent individual who knows how to love herself and hold firm to her boundaries. The time I once devoted to my family, I can face it with a clear conscience. The boundaries I've chosen now are my own path to redemption. May everyone who silently gives so much in family relationships come to understand. Your kindness deserves to be cherished. Your effort should never go unnoticed. Only by staying true to yourself can you truly experience equal and warm-hearted connections.